Yeah, I know people who've had unplanned pregnancies. Shit, I think I was one of them, low key.
I myself was probably unplanned because my older brother would always say I was a mistake. Well, I guess when you say like unplanned pregnancies, it gets like a very negative connotation, regardless of whether something was planned or not. Like the outcome was something great. So
Never met anybody like me. Probably never will. I was born in Spain, Madrid. They really wasn't planning on having me. It just happened. Just because like a nurse, like, I gave my mom like a shot, bad gnarly one, and it affected her. She would have died, and she would have died with me. And they kind of slapped her around. I forgot like how the whole story goes, but they kept her awake just enough for the birth to come out, and then I came out, and I was like dead, and they had to bring me back. So I was born in reverse. I grew up in Europe. Sometimes people will have kids, you go see them in a dumpster, like legitimately infants and shit. And I was thinking that could have probably been me, you know. You know, parents can do that, but I'm glad like they actually took care of me and actually like, hey, you're here right now. Fuck yeah, all right, we're raising this kid then. So I'm glad like I don't know, at least they stuck it out for me, you know. Life is precious, man, and that's what my parents taught me from it. I was with somebody a couple years ago. I met this one chick in Shasta. We're traveling for a little bit. It was cool. I don't know, it's like love at first sight, kind of. Not really. We did the dirty, you know. Made some babies. One baby was implanted in her stomach, and then, you know, a lot of arguments back and forth. I wanted to be like, hey, it's okay, we can take care of it. She told me she was down for it. And then later on that night, she got a miscarriage. On purpose, she took a couple of shit. Hit herself in the stomach. Make sure that didn't come out. So I would have a 2-year-old by now. But I don't. Oh shit, man, you're going deep, man. You didn't even buy me dinner first. But, I don't know. That's what led me to do, I don't know, heroin. It sucked. Felt like I had a black hole. I didn't give a shit and a fuck about anything or anyone. Let alone myself, you know, so, you know, I just felt so defeated. Like, you know, I felt like I got robbed of something, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I wish she would have honestly been like straight up with me, like, hey, don't really want it, that's cool, you know. But at the same time, like, I do respect this, like, it's, in a way, it's like it is her body, she's carrying it, you know. I only give like, here's the seed. You know, she is the one that has the heavy burden, but almost OD'd on it. Fuck. Sucks. Even right now, like, it still kind of hurts, you know what I mean? Like, I try not to think about it so much, like, it really don't. Just saying, I would have had a 2-year-old right now. Probably my life would have been a bit different. You know, who knows? Who knows, like, what the future is going to predict? Everything happens for a reason, though, but it just sucks, you know? Wish I would have done more if I could. You know, I at least wanted to say goodbye. I wish I could go back and just at least do that, you know? No life should be treated like that. Give it a chance, you know? I just want to say goodbye. Just want to say goodbye. Could have been a girl, could have been a boy, could have been both. Still would have loved it, you know what I mean, no matter what. My parents loved me no matter what. It's the same shit I can pass on to my kids. Like, it's not I don't know, life is precious. Like, I cherish it, honestly. At least I try to. Nobody chooses their parents. Nobody chooses why they're here, but you know you're here for a reason. And at least that's what I believe, so nothing happens by mistake. I guess what came from that, I don't know, man. I'm here. I'm a pretty badass shit show. And that's why I have, I don't know, that passion for it. Like, I love experiencing what the world has to offer. I want to see the whole world, every inch of everything. So I want to talk to everybody. Like, that guy, he's cool. So I feel like everybody has a story, man. Like, everybody, you can learn something from everybody, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's a beautiful thing about, like, people, you know? Living in, like, being around people. Staying to connect in it. business, like how you connect and mash. You know, you'll meet the coolest people that you never thought would talk to you. You know, I met millionaires, I met other bums, I met murderers, I met saints. You know, I met all kinds of old walks of people, and I can find the beauty in every little bit. You know what I mean? And that's what makes us all human. We're all not perfect, but shit, we're all stuck in this giant Earth ship going in space, God knows where. You make the most of it. That's what life gives you. If life gives you lemons, you're either gonna plant a lemon tree out of that and make lemon meringue pie, or you can make lemonade. That made no sense, but I love it. Life kind of like does that to everybody, you know. The most important thing is like, you're the hero of your own story, you know, make it a hero's tale.
She didn't want a baby, she didn't plan on having a baby, she wasn't interested in having a baby, she didn't understand having a baby, but she did it, and was an incredible mother. My dad saw my mom as the love of his life, and my mom saw it as the worst relationship she'd ever been in. So it's conflicting stories. Then there was me when she was 23, definitely unplanned. And then she got pregnant again with my dad a couple years later and got an abortion because she didn't want another child with my dad, or at all, but particularly with my dad. Oh, my dad was incredible. They didn't work together, but they were amazing parents separately. We're very well. Unfortunately, he passed away, but up until that point, we were very close. He was the epitome of a hippie, vegetarian, tall, skinny, curly, long hair. Talked a lot of BS. Very stubborn, very opinionated, very passionate, very cerebral, but also very simple. My mom and I are very close. She's just my person, my touchstone, and the person that I resonate with most in my life. And she's nuttier than shit, but she's wonderful. She had an extremely abusive upbringing. So the fact that she took her horrific experiences, she didn't make them mine. She did everything she possibly could to not make that happen. And my mom is flawed, and but she did the absolute best that she could possibly do with the limited resources that she had, both mentally, emotionally, and financially. So I have a lot of respect for her in that way. Well, I have a vision impairment. It's called achromatopsia. So I switch back and forth. I have these really, really cool glasses that I wear when I'm in direct sunlight. All the boys, they're just after me with all those on. Yeah. I just have to beat them off with a stick. I think people just like to be understood as best that they can be. And I have really supportive friends and family, but you don't get it until you get it. You know, if you've had a parent who dies, you don't know what that feels like until your parent dies. You can empathize all you want to, but you just don't know unless you know. So it's a little bit lonely because nobody really understands it. You know, there's a lot of kids that don't know that they're loved, or don't know that they're respected, or don't know that they're cared about. And I had lots of hardships in my life, but I knew every single day that I was loved by my mom and dad. And you can't, at the very least, they did that right. And I think that's incredible.
Like, my parents weren't ready to have a child. They were still essentially teenagers themselves. Dude, teenagers don't know how to live their own lives, let alone raise another life. That's the honesty of it. My mother had been raised in New York, and she had raised in a different school system, private school. She was paralyzed in a moment of poverty that she had not experienced prior. She had been devalued or defaced in the face of her family, and she was disowned from a certain amount of support that would have come from them. they were very orthodox people, so they didn't believe, in extramarital sex, let alone, pregnancy. She had wanted to get rid of the pregnancy at the time. She had really been talked out of it by my grandma. I think in some way she assumed that because my grandmother had talked her out of it, that my grandmother was going to give her support, but that wasn't the case. It wasn't like, oh, no, keep the child and we'll help you take care of it. No, we're not going to do that at all. But it's your responsibility to keep the child. And so she hadn't had a job before. So these things stressed her out. Like, she tried to get a job at Kentucky Fried Chicken, and she got the job and she slipped. She had never done work before. She had slipped and she had bruised her elbow. And really the whole thing was that she didn't know how to mop floors, and she had slipped and fallen on an ill-mopped floor. It was totally her fault. And that's the reason why she didn't get any unemployment, right? But she didn't want to admit this. She wasn't prepared for it at all, in any way whatsoever. She didn't want children. And my father was somebody who had a trucker for a father who was never there. And my grandmother, Marcella, was a wonderful, sweet woman. She was a total pushover. And my dad had just, ran amok for the entirety of his life, in a desert town with, no consequences whatsoever until that moment. And so he was his thing was, I have to make money, and that's what he did. So he would make money, and then it would be spent in the most irresponsible way, and we would still end up on food stamps, which was an embarrassment to him because he didn't know what was going wrong. They used to say I was too smart for my own good, and I think maybe at one point in time it would have been true, because I really was a pain in their ass. I knew that they didn't care. And because they didn't care, it gave me a tremendous amount of freedom to do whatever it was that I wanted to do, but that is a dual-edged sword. I don't know. I appreciate it in some ways. So I would spend time with my dad at a sawmill, and he's working on things, so he would tell me, just go explore. And so I would have this enormous sawmill, and this is one of my most cherished moments with my father, but I think about it and I'm like, he was too busy, so he told me to go run around in a dangerous sawmill. I almost killed myself several times in this place, but it was an incredible place to explore, and I wouldn't have had the capacity to have done so otherwise. A tremendous amount of imagination occurred while, him not having the time to necessarily spend with me, giving me this enormous amount of freedom in another way. I think maybe it's cool to be a human being if for any other reason than you get to make up a bunch of stuff. That we are meaning makers. That I can literally live in a world as magical or as dull as I want it to be. It's really truly my choice to do that, I think. And I do not believe that if a person has a purpose, that it is something that is given to them. But I do believe that people can make up their own purposes, and that when they do, it's just as good. You don't have to do that, but I think that if you do something like that and you make up a purpose for yourself, that you will become the person that is capable of accomplishing it, if it truly is important to you.